So, over the course of 3, 4 days, essentially, we've had some major updates on three long running rumors regarding Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, and also Bloodborne. All in the span of like 3, 4 days, right? These are rumors that have been going on for years, and it's always been dangling in front of fans like, hey, here it is, it's not going to happen. I think this is the most movement we've had on all three of these things, so let's touch on it before LTPS gets a little bit too long this coming Friday. So, for those that did not see, this started right around when I published LTPS on Friday, which for that at least I was able to catch the story and at least include like a text overlay graphic, which you might have seen during that show, but it was too late for me to talk about it on camera, so that's why we're doing it now, because since Friday in this initial report, a few other things have cropped up, but going back to the initial report and running through the timeline here, we had a report from Andy Robinson on Video Games Chronicle that states Konami is set to revive Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania, and Silent Hill. Now, Castlevania, of course, a very big deal, but at least for the PlayStation landscape, the PlayStation side of things, these two ongoing rumors for Metal Gear Solid and Silent Hill, there has been some possible Sony involvement, and that's why we've touched on them before. And, well, in this report, this is what we're learning about what Konami plans to do with these IP and, well, that IP in particular. So the idea is that with Konami recently restructuring their games business, their games division, they're starting to ease up to the idea of possibly, taking their well-known franchises and letting other developers work on them based on the poor performance of how these games have done being developed in-house. And that's how they would do it, right? Because keep in mind, you've seen possibly people bring up the argument of like Sony or Microsoft or whoever should like buy the properties off of Konami. Like, that's not how that would go down. It would be a matter of Konami just having their cake and eating it too, which means they'll license the IP out. They're going to keep Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, whatever else that they have, and let another developer do it. Maybe let another publisher step in and facilitate the deal and just say, we're going to let them take care of it, profit share, and everybody's happy in that situation, right? Konami's not going to sell the property. So that's what this report is stating. And at least for Metal Gear Solid, it points out that they're actually looking at Metal Gear Solid 3 as a full-on remake and remasters for the other Metal Gear Solid games, which would presumably be 1, 2, maybe 3 as well, so that's an option to play it principally how it was back then. 4 would be great, of course, because it's, stuck on PS3, maybe also Peace Walker or something, but the point is that you would get remasters of those games, including MGS1, and the real remake here is with MGS3. And if you remember on Friday when we talked about that new Twitter account that popped up, Millie A, where she was very accurate about the PlayStation Showcase, she had answered questions about this MGS remake and said, no, it's not Bluepoint. And she also mentioned that it was with a developer in Asia. So she didn't actually clarify exactly who it was, but just, hey, here's where they are, not in, America. And that was actually accurate because we're also hearing, well, again, not confirmed, so these are all rumors, keep in mind, but these all line up where she says it's somebody in Asia, and the alleged developer that we're hearing about making this MGS3 remake is Virtuous, located in Singapore. And in the short term, we can see that lines up with what Millie A was saying. And if we try to connect that to like the original MGS1 rumor, like this is why I didn't like it. It doesn't seem to really line up at all. One is saying that there's a remake of the first game that's being, developed in America versus we've got multiple remasters and MGS3 being remade by a team in Singapore. So I don't think these two were ever really connected whatsoever. But for Silent Hill, the VGC report doesn't go into much detail outside of what we were hearing about for the past 3 years now. I think it actually goes back to 2019, but they've all principally been saying the same thing, which is that Konami's outsourcing the IP to multiple studios, and one of them is with a prominent Japanese developer. The most recent update that we had there is that Bloober Team appears to have secured one game, and the other one is still a prominent Japanese developer. So at least 2, and that is the most that we heard about so far. Andy Robinson mentioned that back in February 2019, where, Bloober Team's one of them, and the other one a prominent developer. He said no, not Kojima back then. That was in February. His recent report on Friday did not mention anything extra, just still a prominent Japanese developer. However, when we had a report come out of Gamatsu, which it seemed like they were just, regurgitating this news, that's quite common, and they don't really, Gamatsu's not really known for, posting a bunch of rumors and things like that. Usually if they report something that's rumor related or if they have sources, it's been pretty good. So they don't often post things like that, but when they put up their version of the story, they actually wrote that they have a source claiming that the studio is Kojima Productions, according to a publishing source that wishes to remain anonymous, and they said the game is funded by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Now, that's kind of a big deal, of course, from what is a recognized site that doesn't normally do things like this. So naturally, people are going to ask questions, and they did for Andy Robinson of VGC, where he says, yes, I've been asked a lot about this. All I can say is that the Japanese studio that he referenced in his reporting is not Kojima Productions. He does also say that Sao Gamatsu is a great journalist, so I don't doubt his info. And just for some extra redundancy on this rumor, we also have Millie A, that reliable Twitter account as of recent. She also said no, it's not Kojima or Sony for a Silent Hill game being in the works that those sites were reporting. So we've got some conflicting reports here. However, it seems like something's in the works. And the thing is, I had actually brought this up maybe like a year and a half or 2 years ago, whenever we covered these Silent Hill rumors early on. I don't think I brought it up recently, but it's a matter of if there is some sort of Sony involvement, because people are begging the question, why would Kojima go back to Konami? Why would they work together? How does that make any sense, right? Of course he wouldn't go back to them. The thing is, if Konami is willing to outsource their projects and they want to stay hands-off, if Sony wants to step in as well and be a mediator between the two, and also if we have Kojima still having an interest in making a Silent Hill game or doing a horror game, which he's been very open about, it's not really a secret that that's something that he wants to try, you have a win-win-win scenario. So if it happened, that's how it would. In fact, that's the only route or path I could see this ever taking place, is that a publisher steps in between the two, facilitating the deal, making sure that Kojima can make the game and he doesn't have any sort of creative differences or, Konami breathing down his neck. Konami has a well-known IP that they get paid off of for doing very little because they're hands-off with the project. And Sony, why would they be involved? Well, they've got, that would be an exclusive game for them, right? That's their interest out of that particular deal. Everybody wins. So I'm not saying that this is definitely happening, but this is our most recent update, and it's a big one. But I would like to see where the solution or what the answer is, because we've got a very obvious fork in the road of multiple games. It's always been 2 projects. I don't know about 3, though. That seems a little excessive. But I am curious to find out if Sony really is stepping in once again to see this project through, because remember, they were there with some involvement in 2014, Silent Hills, PT, PS4. It was shown off during Gamescom 2014. That was a big deal, right? Sony was involved back then, and maybe they're trying to do it again and making sure that it happens. And it's probably also worth mentioning for this rumor, we have more conflicts going on, just in that we had Norman Reedus mentioning, oh yeah, I think Death Stranding 2 is being negotiated, or the Xbox rumor that Kojima is making an Xbox game, that he's signed a letter of intent. And I don't know why people can't seem to understand the concept that 2 games can be in development at the same time, or that 2 projects can be a bit staggered, where one goes into full production, the other one pre-production. Once one game ships, they move over to the other game. I mean, these things aren't impossible. It's not a foreign idea to understand. Why does this have to go into like the fanboy rabbit hole where people, like PlayStation fans don't want the Xbox rumor to be true? And I don't understand that, really. It's not hard to think that maybe both could happen if Sony wants to, again, work with Kojima. It's not off the table completely, because we have a rumor about Kojima exploring a cloud-based game with Microsoft, which I believe the original rumor for that game is that it would maybe be shorter or cinematic or episodic-based. Who knows? It could be anything, really, but it's not impossible. Now, finally, we have Bloodborne. This one was a very recent development just yesterday, where we had Colin Moriarty of Sacred Symbols. I know a lot of you watched that show alongside this one. Colin has a very deep history with the games business, where he worked at IGN for a long time. He has very good sources. And it's not often nowadays that he really brings up, like rumory type stuff. So when he does, usually it's something worth looking at. And he tweeted out that he's hearing through the grapevine, Bluepoint may be on a journey to Yharnam. And he elaborated further on his Discord about how it does sound like it's 2 projects at Bluepoint. And this was the same source where he had heard about, I believe, the Bluepoint acquisition, or he also was told about Wolverine ahead of time, and he didn't actually believe that was going to be a thing, but of course it ended up being true, as we all know. But anyway, that's where he's hearing it from. 2 projects, one being a Bloodborne remaster, and one being a sequel to Bloodborne, which could explain Bluepoint being open about how they're doing new original content, and that's how they phrased it, which led many of us to think that, oh, okay, so it's not a new IP, but rather you're finally making your own brand new content, but you could be working on a sequel or just an existing franchise in some way, shape, or form, which would explain this, that would explain the Bloodborne thing. And as more redundancy to this rumor, another recent development was Lance McDonald, well known in the Souls community. He loves Bloodborne, and he's also posted some things before, and he recently said, "I saw a Bloodborne remastered," and then he posted a picture, that classic The Office meme. These two pictures are pretty much the same. The Colin Moriarty tweet and Lance McDonald, "I saw a Bloodborne remaster." And this is the first time where Lance has actually, said anything regarding a Bloodborne thing actually happening. Because keep in mind, the Bloodborne thing, well, I mean, I guess all these rumors, there's been a lot of pessimism going into them because it's like, again, they've been dangled in front of fans for years. We all want something, especially for Bloodborne. That'd be so great. It was a recent PS4 game, playable through backwards compatibility, but it's locked at 30 FPS. Playing Demon Souls on PS5 was so great because you had that unlocked frame rate, or not even unlocked. They were just targeting 60, and it felt and played great. The game looked gorgeous. Of course, we know Bluepoint's a capable developer, and so to hand off the Bloodborne remaster, because it doesn't need much, right? It's a PS4 game, so that would also line up quite well with just the amount of people that work at Bluepoint, right? So again, they're not huge. I mean, they're big, but they're not massive. So that might explain the remaster. And again, this Twitter account that we brought up, that was one where they said there's two projects going on at Bluepoint. One is still a remaster, one a brand new project, which for that, the new original content would be a Bloodborne 2, a ground-up sequel to Bloodborne, which that would be an exciting prospect, although one where I'd be surprised if it was just Bluepoint entirely. I think at a minimum we're looking at, like if this were true, it would be From Software consulting or overlooking the project and just, providing feedback and making sure that the game turns out okay, which Bluepoint can certainly do. It's not really like an alarming thing, although when it comes to all the franchises that we've been talking about so far, fans like to keep them all very close to their chest. I mean, you've got people that were very upset at the Demon Souls remake on PS5 because Bluepoint didn't do a one-for-one design remake, so they were upset at how the design deviated, even though, principally the game looked fantastic and it was pretty much the same the entire way through, but, people were upset about that. So the idea of Bluepoint doing a Bloodborne sequel all on their own, I can see where people would maybe have a sense of nervousness from that, but having more Bloodborne and having it be in the hands of a developer that has proven they're capable of putting out extremely good software, or at least visually speaking, because again they've been remaking all these games, but as Bluepoint's president pointed out, they're not trained in remakes, right? They all come from a background of making content on their own, so it's not impossible for them to make their own video game. I think that much should be clear. But that's what we have so far for a Bloodborne rumor. And all the other ones that we just talked about. Just a lot of things happen in such a short amount of time for these well-known games, and one thing seems to be clear, even though it seems Sony doesn't have any involvement in the ongoing MGS rumor so far. For Silent Hill and Bloodborne, there does seem to be some movement there, and I mean, there's so many other games that we are keeping track of when it comes to the rumor mill. PlayStation has been very busy as of late, or at least behind the scenes, there's a lot going on, and I think 2022 is going to be a very interesting year because that's going to be the year that shows us 2023 games, and that's going to be when we're reaching the peak point of, or the midpoint of the console life cycle, and that's where you're going to see, I think, some really incredible things. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter at Mystic Ryan. And that is it. I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.